Colleagues, Ciarán, thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak to you at this forum today. And thanks to Tony and the other colleagues in Start Strong. It's a really great opportunity for us, I suppose, to have the first public piece of information about the education-focused inspections that we've been asked to do in the free preschool year by DCYA, and I hope the presentation will at least scope out what the thinking is at the moment before we go to consultations. I've been here since this morning. Listened attentively to the compelling sessions this morning, the questions, the issues in respect of the system that we have at the moment, I suppose, fragmentation of that system, and the picture as it is emerging in terms of a much better future for the sector and a much better future for children in the entire 0 to 6 phase. So it was really great to be part of that. I thought that I found it very interesting to hear the observations of the panel to some of the questions, and in particular, like in the school system, that very important power of the collective in terms of naming what changes need to happen is hugely important. And I think as part of the emerging picture then, the Inspectorate of the Department of Educational Skills is really privileged, challenging and all as the environment is. We're actually privileged to be involved with you now over the next years in terms of putting, in particular from our perspective, helping you to put that learning focus right at the heart of the work. I think the first thing, I suppose, is to connect with some of the values as to why we as an inspection service from the school system are really delighted to be working with you. And it is because of those compelling messages about what is really special about learning for very young children. I'm not teaching anybody anything new here. All of you who have ever had a child at home or a child in a setting or have been responsible for their development know this, that children we want them as competent, confident and capable learners, able to make choices and decisions. They love learning about the world. We don't have to persuade them about that, why and how things happen the way they do. And they do this by interacting with us, with each other, and interacting with things and in different places. We know they learn through their senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, by doing things, by being active, by playing, by using language, in interesting and challenging indoor and outdoor environments where they feel secure and loved. And I think the bottom, and this comes from the summary of research papers around the time of the development of the Ashter framework. I think the bottom part, which is difficult to read, but I'll read it through. Early childhood is an important time for developing children's ability to persevere, to take risks and solve problems, to develop confidence and independence, to nurture their curiosity, and to develop an identity as a learner. I think that probably is the biggest gift that we could give. It's for young children to begin on acquiring that identity as a learner. You see it in the 18-month-old. You know, look what I can do, or the 2-year-old. You already see them engaging in things they can do. They have surmounted a particular challenge, achieved something. And I think we want to make that a concrete part of the learning and development experience that is provided by us. Those messages, like why would an inspection service from the Ministry for Education be interested in that? Because that picture links in a really compelling way with our values as an inspection service. And in fact, we've been, in the school system, we've been working really hard to move to a focus on learner in the work that we do with the school system. It's like in your own work, it is slow work, but it is delivering benefits to us working closely with our stakeholders in the school system. And I'll come to how we propose to work with you in the early years. The background and context for this is that shared interest of DCYA as a ministry and our own department in ensuring high quality preschool experience. The research, of course, and we've heard some of it this morning in terms of the impact of early years on later learning. An absolutely compelling rationale for investing in high quality support. the department's literacy and numeracy strategy in 2011 focused, for us in any case, on the importance of early years as part of a really through lines literacy and numeracy strategy right up to the end of upper secondary leaving certificate. We've had very good and productive work with the now Tusla Preschool Inspectorate in terms of working with them on a pilot of evaluations in preschool settings. And we're also really delighted to be part of the new quality agenda that was articulated very clearly by Minister Fitzgerald in 2013 and was built on and is being built on now under Minister Flanagan briefly and under the current Minister. And we all look forward to the articulation of the strategy and hopefully forces that will help to bring us together into a coherent picture. And also, I mean, I'm here as speaking on behalf of the Inspectorate of the department, but our own Minister is hugely interested in making us available to work with you and indeed to for us to provide what we can in terms of knowledge and expertise around evaluation work and a focus on learning. Brian, that we already have strong links with, had a number of graphics. I know it would be difficult maybe for some of you to see it, but for us, I think the graphic is useful because it locates for us, I think, a coherent picture of how we can fit in. It begins in the middle with the settings themselves and where children learn, and in particular with supporting the ASHTR framework as a good curriculum basis within settings. Outside of that, in a parallel with the school system, which is beginning to work on school self-evaluation, the Childcare framework does really provide the basis for a reflective process within schools in order to, within settings for early years in terms of improving practice. Outside of good practice, there is buckets of good practice out in the system. We haven't really come across it today at all. Today was, I think, a different kind of conversation, but I've been at seminars where early years practitioners have come and shown their wares arising from the work that they've been doing, and there's fantastic work going on in the system. And as an education-focused inspection service, we want to affirm that. We want to promote a focus on high-quality learning. We will make recommendations arising from our inspection visits, and that is part of helping settings to work towards best practice. We have a commitment in the school system that we don't run ahead of capacity in the system. We don't arrive with an unreasonable inspection framework that nobody can attain and give black marks around everywhere. We're very sensitive to where the system is at. We're very sensitive to the current context. And what we want to do is work over time, and it will take several years to work over time to gradually bring up all services. We do want to promote Shieldta, of course, as a reflective process. We're working on it in the school system under school self-evaluation, but we're taking it very slowly in the school system. A lot of talk about school self-evaluation at the moment. We are taking it slowly and carefully, and we're moving in tandem with the capacity of schools to begin to absorb that kind of process. Now, the quality framework, what are our objectives then? Well, we have a central focus on the quality of learning, as we've been asked to do in the free preschool year. But we're very sensitive to the 0 to 6 continuum, and in fact, we will have a remit then in terms of the education focus in the free preschool year, in the infant and in the 2 infant classes. So we will have the privilege of having a picture of the 3 to 6 phase. Indeed, I should say, and it was touched on very briefly this morning, there is plenty of work to do in the infant classes in terms of bringing the forward wash from the best principles of ASHTR into the infant classes. And in many respects, I think being able to straddle both of those will help in some of the transition. We have articulated an evaluation framework, which I'm going to show you. We've researched it, I suppose, thoroughly to get something together prior to consultation. The norms that we have included in the framework we think are very appropriate for the age group. We have been very careful to limit the framework to something that is manageable and to the most important things. And starting in January then, we will initiate a consultation process on the evaluation framework and on the inspection procedures involving all stakeholders. Interestingly, we are obliged to do that under legislation. So every time that we have an inspection process in the school system, we're obliged to consult in a serious way with the sector, and we always learn from it. We always take account of suggestions, and the final models are always improved by the process of consultation. This is just to update you on how far we currently have got. We have four areas in the framework: the quality of support for children's learning and development, the quality of provision for learning and development, the quality of children's learning experiences and achievements, and the quality of management and leadership for learning. You will all recognise these areas now when I go through them. This is the first area: quality of support for children's learning. This is about the context and the environment, a context that nurtures children's learning and development. Responsive, reciprocal and sensitive relationships between the adults and children in the setting. And thirdly, that children's sense of identity and belonging is nurtured. Now, in the consultations, we'll provide you with a better description and a more detailed description. But for the top headline areas, that's what we think are important under this first area. Under the second area of provision, yes, the provision should be informed by the ASTRA framework, and that is why investment is being made in recasting the ASTRA framework to make it, I suppose, easier to implement and to bring about into practice in settings. Secondly, the environment and resources to support learning, the high quality interactions with children, that play-based approaches are central. That would be an obvious expectation you would have. That emergent language and numeracy are fostered, and we're not talking about the schoolification of preschools, quite the opposite. But there's an appropriate phase of the acquisition of language and the acquisition of concepts of numeracy that are appropriate for that phase. That learning and development is progressive, that children move from stage to stage, and that they're learning within an inclusive environment. Of course, we're in a diverse society, and that there should be care around the inclusion of all. In terms of their experiences and achievements, we should be able to, as practitioners, we should be able to track children's development so we can inform next learning. That is not about volumes of paperwork, but it is about practitioners having regard to what children have been doing, how they have succeeded in whatever tasks and educational activities or games or whatever they were doing, and then what might be a good adaptation for the following day or the following week or the following month. Children are motivated, interested and engaged in their activities, that they enjoy their learning, that they have a sense of belonging, that they have opportunity to communicate their experience, their ideas and feelings with others, and that they are in a place where they're able to make sense of their world by interaction with others through playing, investigating and questioning. And these, we think, are the important questions that you would be asking yourselves, and that will be part of the inspection framework. And finally, around leading, around quality of management and leadership for learning, the Childcare framework, as I've talked about, leading and managing, providing high quality learning, the clear channels of communication then between preschools and parents and children, and then the transitions into and from the setting. And we're very conscious too that the school system has an obligation too to work on the reception side of that too, and to work closely with you in terms of working on those transitions. And I think we will have an opportunity to link that up. We've been, I suppose, trialling this draft model in the 24 early start, in 24 of the early start settings that were mentioned this morning, and that is to see whether this initial framework is a useful tool, and we're finding that it is as a framework. I'm sure we will learn a lot more from you when we table it more formally at consultations, and you have a chance to give us written feedback and indeed face-to-face meetings with us in order to help shape it into the best that it can be for now. It certainly won't be the finished article, and in fact all our models are in and in a process of evolution and improvement. There was a focus on advising and supporting personnel. We would absolutely continue with that. And most of the evaluation time was spent observing children and interacting with them. And that is a really distinct feature of our inspection service. It isn't a desk-based, office-based kind of process. It's in settings. It's about observing. It is about engaging with the children. It is about engaging with the adults who are responsible for the children's learning and development. The relevant documentation that might illuminate what is the learning programme would be looked at, and then absolutely important, this co-professional dialogue. What are the specific plans? We will be recruiting a team of 10 early years inspectors starting in early 2015. These will be from the sector. They will have qualifications and experience in early years education and care, and relevant leadership experience. Indeed, some of the inspectors may be in this room. This team will join, we hope, this team will join experienced inspectors from our own staff who currently have assigned responsibility for early years, and they will work as a team. They will work nationally in our 5 regions, and there will be extensive training and induction in their evaluation work. The model will be refined then through both the consultations that I've talked about and through piloting up until the summertime. And we hope to do a significant tranche of inspections in the 2015-2016 period. We won't be falling over each other inspecting. It's still a very small team. There are thousands of settings out there. We will plan very carefully to make sure that we are not duplicating work that's done already in terms of the model, and we will plan and sequence our inspections carefully to make sure that you are not experiencing a burden of inspection. That's, it's a ridiculous use of a resource to have it happen like that, and we're very conscious of that from the beginning. The inspections we've had are so far 1-day events, in larger settings maybe 2-day events. Reports will be published in order to inform parents on the one hand, and I suppose there is a public accountability element to this too. It's good for services to have a system where the public can have trust and faith in what is going on in settings. Final next steps, again I'm repeating the commitment around initiating an open consultation. We'll work very closely with TUSL and Pobble and of course other stakeholders. I think 3 important slides. What are we working towards in the future? Achieving common purpose around developing a quality culture. That's what we want to be part of with you, a quality culture and greater professional capacity. Secondly, we take account of context and diversity of provision in supporting a journey towards excellence. It is going to take time. We're very conscious of that from the school setting. And finally, we will be making commitments to you then in terms of our professional standards about how we go about the work. There are safeguards and commitments in terms of our own code of conduct, our own codes of practice, and we will use all of those. All of those will be available to settings in terms of how we go about our work. So, as Brian said already, it's good that we are held up to account for how we go about our work, and that settings, as a routine, will have the right to factually verify the judgments that we make prior to reports being cleared and published. We really look forward to working with the sector. We don't have all the answers. I know we're going to have some panel discussions and questions and answers, but we are really very, very pleased. We hope that we've located it in the right way for you, and we are really looking forward to working with you. Thanks very much, Kiri.